Hi guys, I'm Shmee and good morning and welcome back to another video where you join me in Valencia, Spain for the press launch of the new Audi A8. Now this car is a technological marvel. It is very much Vorsprung durch Technik, and today we're going to go for a first drive and a full look at as many of the features that I can show you as possible during this video. Let's get started with a summary walk around some of the highlight features and details of the technology powerhouse that is the new A8. Now it's a feast for the imagination in terms of safety, security, convenience, and all of the different features that I'm going to touch on through this video, some of which I'll only be able to scratch on the surface of right now, but there's plenty more to show you later on, believe me. Now the new A8 is the first level 3 full production vehicle. I'll explain more of the autonomous driving side later on and what that means it allows us to do, but let's take a look from a design point of view to get started. And the first thing you notice about the car is the new single frame front grille. It sits lower, it sits wider, and it sits more upright, giving the car a much more sporting presence when you're around the front. Then the headlights, Audi's full LED with laser light technology. This car has four-wheel steering, Audi's AI active suspension, which again is incredibly trick for a smoother ride, but also for safety. As we come around the side of the car, the silhouette has almost a coupe-like style to the back of it, again enhancing the sporty image. And then you get round to the rear, where you have the OLED rear lights underneath that light bar going the full width. Now this car features the 60 designation, which means the 4-litre V8. It's got 460 horsepower, and it's the A8L, the long wheelbase, which is about 13 centimeters longer than the standard car, 2 centimeters taller. But let's have a quick glance at the inside. And the first thing, the door handles themselves are a nice thing to pull and hold. And then you're greeted by this interior, where you now have 3 digital displays. Audi's latest system that's been upgraded to touch response. Everything is controlled through those displays and panels and controls that wake when you open the door. And you can imagine there is a lot in there that I'm going to be showing you later on. Then we come and have a quick look into the rear, where the long wheelbase, luxury, comfort, space, the rear remote control screen that you can turn on your massager. You could actually even have an option, and this car has it, for the foot massager for the rear right passenger seat. It's quite frankly ludicrous how much technology that this car actually features. Soft close on the doors. So we're going to try and run over this in a lot more detail as this video progresses. I think naturally the first start would be to take it for a little drive, get out on the roads and start thinking about what it's like out there. For a first little look then at what the car is like to drive, and the immediate observation is the calmness and softness inside here, both in terms of how actually loud it is. It's not at all, it's very, very quiet, but also in terms of the suspension system. Now it has this AI active suspension, which is absolutely brilliant. It's a mild hybrid MHEV, which means it has batteries that power cameras that allow it to predict what's coming up on the road and see the bumps and smoothen them out by controlling the suspension to adjust the pitch and how you're turning to keep the ride as smooth as possible. And it is an amazing, amazing system. As we go up to a speed bump, it softens that initial impact completely and makes for a really, really gentle ride. Now, like I said, this car has level 3 autonomy, so level 3 autonomous driving on a scale that increases with new technology coming in, but this is the introduction to what's being allowed on European roads at the moment. That means up to 60 kilometers per hour, it can control the car in a traffic jam. So although it still has sensors that check you're alert and awake and aware of what's going on, it will drive the car itself, start and stop on its own, keep you in your lane. Now, obviously there are full electric vehicles with a wider range than that, but this is where we're allowed to go up to at this moment in time, and this is the first car that introduces it as a full production vehicle. But again, just going over these bumps, it completely smoothens it out in a way I haven't experienced before. Now this car, the 60 version of the A8L, has the 4-litre twin turbocharged V8, has the 8-speed automatic Tiptronic gearbox, 460 horsepower, 660 newton meters of torque. Top speed is limited to 250 kilometers an hour, 155 miles per hour, but it is very quiet and very peaceful. And the noises you hear are mostly the air conditioning and the seat ventilation that I've got on because we're in Spain and it's really quite warm today. But initial impressions are that you would get out of this car feeling very, very, very relaxed. And this is just an early introduction to what it's capable of. Now I want to start off showing you all around the functionality and technology. So let's park up and get started. Well, this is an incredible view, but let's take a full look around the Audi A8. The exterior, the interior, the front and the rear, and show you many of the details and features of the latest generation. Now, the marketing line for the car: sporty elegance, sophistication, and progressive status. Now, what that means to you and I is a sportier car than the previous generation, than the third gen A8, but also still very much elegant, smart, and luxurious amongst others. Now, I talked a little bit about the exterior at the start of this video, but let's have a full walk around and talk all about it. So this car's finished in Navarra blue, a lovely dark navy, and as you can see, there are quite a few chrome highlights and bits of trim all around the car. So the front single frame grille, this line that follows the lower edge of the car all the way around, obviously the silver wheel choice and the silver window surround as well, and also these pieces around that front intake. You've got all sorts of sensors, radar, lasers, everything, cameras, you name it, for all of the car's autonomous capabilities. If we come back in towards the front grille that I mentioned, it sits lower than before, it's wider than before, and it's more upright than before, so it gives it more of a stance and a leaning forward sporty nature. The four rings worn up there alongside the Quattro badge. Every version of the Audi A8 has Audi's Quattro system, four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive system there. The grille itself has these single slats that come out into twin slats just towards the edge. That line continues very nicely out into the headlights, which will bring us on nicely to talk about those. The Matrix LED with laser light technology headlights, laser light giving it double the range on high beam, and they look pretty trick as well, don't they, with all the different parts that they've got going on in there. So as we come round, the car has Audi's AI active suspension, which means as it's sat here, it's working on self-leveling itself. It always tries to keep the car as flat as possible, so even pitch on acceleration and braking is smoothened out. Cornering, of course, with this clever trick system that's managed through a battery in the rear. It's actually a mild hybrid vehicle, so it uses electrical systems for various different things to do with driving, coasting, cylinder deactivation, everything on that front. But of course, long wheelbase. It is a rather long car as we come round towards the back, where you have more chrome trim here running the full width across the centre underneath that LED light bar at the back, and then you have the OLED rear lights too, which make it more visible from a longer distance above the A8L designation and the 60 TFSI. Now, Audi's new naming system take a little bit of learning. In the A8 there's a 50, a 55, a 60, and there will be a W12 version as well in due course with nearer to 600 horsepower, 585 or so. Now, one thing that's particularly confusing are these kind of exhaust pipes that aren't exhaust pipes. The exhaust is actually underneath. Those are purely visual. Now, that's being greeted with mixed reactions in the car world because it's for show rather than functionality. But you can see, walking the length of the car, you've got these elongated lines that run the full length, this sharp crease, all part of the sporty look to it. And as I mentioned earlier, the coupe-esque silhouette to the roof, although the long wheelbase sits 2 centimeters higher than the shorter wheelbase version of the car as well. So around the exterior, last little bit, the spoiler at the back, or the slight lip it's got to the rear boot lid that you'd expect. But other than that, it is very much smart, clean, and elegant. So let's jump to the inside. One of the more basic pieces of functionality that you expect to find now is a keyless system where you have the key in your pocket, of course. But just to quickly show you, it's a small little key. You can open the boot from this, where there's naturally a very decent amount of luggage space. Back in here, we have all of our luggage, but no shortage of room. You can close that back down from the key as well. Press and hold, and down it shuts. So I'll pop that back in my pocket. And the experience of the car really starts here from the door handles, because they're actually electric handles that you only have to pull a couple of millimeters and then it releases the catch. So you don't have to give it the full tug, although you can. And soft close, of course, to shut them back in. But that's the same inside and outside, and very, very nice. Now in here, it's very, very simple and clean. There are not huge numbers of buttons. The surfaces are all very nicely integrated. If we step in and just have a look in here, There's a new look steering wheel. The main central display is discreetly hidden inside this black piece that runs the full width. You can see the curves that run around to the edge of the door, encompassing you inside the driver zone. If I pull the door closed just now, I'm going to start the engine because it's actually really rather hot here. So keyless start, stop button here. Comes into life very softly. Now this is Audi's virtual cockpit. We've seen that, we're familiar with that from other models. 12.3-inch display in the center for the driver. You've also got an over 10-inch display there for Audi's MMI. So this is the new latest generation MMI with touch response. So you get a haptic feedback when you interact with it. And then beneath that is another 8.5-inch screen that allows you to control your climate settings and the like. So there are very few other buttons outside your basic media controls on the steering wheel and just a few others here. There isn't too much to actually press and feel frustrated and bothered by, and that's all part of the new user experience they're going for. So it has fun things like when I started it up, these vent flaps actually opened, they start closed, which I like. I like those kind of things. And then I don't really know where to start, but here you can change the view, you can have the larger dials, you can go through your different bits of whatever you may want open. You've got controls for lights down here. The air vents are controlled through this touch slider, which is, again, very, very nice. This display in the center, if we turn it back off, you can see how neatly it integrates. You almost can't see that there's actually a digital display there in the center at all. I'll bring it back to life. And it has this experience that when you press the buttons and give them a firm push, the whole screen moves by the width of a human hair, just to give you a slight haptic feedback along with the click noise that you hear too. So you can turn that off, by the way, and use it like a regular touchscreen should you prefer, but it has a nice feel to it. It's very responsive, and obviously it's very, very, very feature rich. Apps, it has LTE, so it's a hotspot, 300 megabit per second download, 50 megabit per second upload. It's pretty high resolution as well on this display screen, and it all just looks very, very clean and nice, and no end of settings and the like that you can go through in there. But if we press this button here, we can go through some of the assistance systems that this car has. And quite frankly, there are so many: night vision, distance warning, presense, side assist, intersection assist, emergency assist, exit warning system. It recognizes when you're opening the door if somebody, or a cyclist, let's say, is coming up from behind you and you might not have spotted them. It does everything, and that's in addition to all of the usual things you're familiar with in a car like this, like 360 cameras, lane guidance, adaptive cruise control, everything else. And then technology, the Bang & Olufsen system. It has 3D sound front and rear from 23 speakers. And in fact, let's head out and jump into the rear, which you do by pulling this handle again just a couple of millimeters to release it. It's a wonderful feeling. I'm going to leave the engine running because I'm heading round to the back to show you some of the features in there. And this car is all positioned for the rear right passenger seat, so we will come round to there, and left-hand drive car, and jump into this, again, feast of luxury and elegance that you have in the rear. 2+2 configuration, the luxuriousness of these seats, lovely finish, perforation, ventilated, heated. You've got the displays here, and I will take a step into the back. I'm not entirely sure where to begin back here, but let's look at the center console, where we have this almost tablet style rear seat control from which you can adjust all sorts of different settings, functionality, your massaging ability of the seats, also the foot massager that you've got there. So you can control, the things you might expect. The massager of my seat, you can go through all the different modes and settings that you've got for that. You can flip between seats, you adjust your seats, of course. You can move the front seat even from back here, so you can press this button and then move the front seat away from us, which works exactly as you would expect it to. Head back to home. Lights, you've got huge numbers of lights. You can change the different colours, so the illuminated strips you have all around the car through the door panels are all controlled through here, and you can see, you can make them brighter, play with the different settings. You can just see the orange that we've got illuminated now. And also, although I'm not a huge fan of it necessarily, the strip that you have up here over the top of the B pillar. Back to home, actually the matrix lights. Let's talk about these reading lights, because they are like, this is just incredibly cool. So on this car you have up here the 7 lights of the matrix reading lights. And what that means is you can fine tune the brightness and positioning of those lights and how exactly they point down. So if we go into individual here, and you can control the, here we go, yeah, size. So we can make it smaller, and you can position where exactly the light is looking down on. You can see as I point it to the middle, this whole area actually lit up. But it's just incredible to have this level of technology. Then you've obviously got blinds. You can control also the panoramic roof if your car is fitted with the panoramic roof. In the L, you'd have 2 parts to the panoramic roof. In the normal, regular A8, you just have up at the front, but again, easy to control those. And all of this is done remotely. If you take this out, it all still functions exactly as you expect. You can turn on the displays in front of us. I'm going to put it back in, actually. It's a little bit easier for me now, but you can turn these on where you get driver information. Again, all the screens. Oh, you've got an Android style browser in there too. It's remarkably well equipped. As you can see, there's just absolutely everything in here that you could possibly ever want. Then your ventilation of the seats, your climate control settings are all in here too. It's mental how much stuff you've got. And then let's just push the front seat slightly further away, get it completely out of shot, and you've just got the ability to do everything from back here, as well as ample storage, cup holders, a full power socket. There's a full like mains power socket in there. I've not seen that standard in a car. The armrest, touch charging. Got more storage buckets back here and space. Okay, storage bucket, and then the cubby for the through load system into the boot. If you want to put skis in your Audi A8, that kind of thing. And then the seats themselves, which if I just move this seat, you can see how that works. They stretch out, and they have so many different parts of the comfort side and the massaging function. I think there are 16 different balls inside here that massage you away. So it's pretty crazy in terms of the luxuriousness. I've said that word a lot, but you really do feel it in this car. I really like how those door handles work, how you barely need to press them. That folds down for the massaging functionality, which is crazy. Maybe we'll come back and have a little look further around some of these things later on, but for the minute, I think it's time to jump back on the road and take out the car for a slightly further drive and play with the different settings. It's time to explore this in significantly more detail. So I'm driving along in full normal automatic comfort mode. You have Audi Drive Select, so you can configure individually personalized, put it in dynamic or comfort as you like. But naturally, for a gentle cruise, and I think with the character of the car, automatic picks it up very nicely. Obviously, if you're out and wanting to drive in a more sporty manner, pop it up into sport. But cruising along, like I said earlier, the biggest observation is the calmness. It is so quiet and gentle in here, and the seats are very comfortable, and everything you're touching is nice. The steering wheel looks great with the hexagonal pattern like the front grille in the middle of it. You have all sorts of safety and driving assistance features that are working and doing their thing. So lane guidance, lane detection, so if you touch the white lines it vibrates at you. You've got adaptive cruise control if you want, up to 60 kilometers an hour like I mentioned. You can have the option to have the traffic jam autopilot option from the Audi A8. It also has garage, ability to park in a garage, and parking pilot, and just so much you wouldn't believe. But driving along, steering it's not spectacularly light, it's not Rolls-Royce one finger style, but it's not effort, it doesn't require effort, it's very relaxing to actually drive the car. Everything you touch and look at is, in my mind, the absence of buttons means you have to spend more time looking at where you're actually pressing. So on a touchscreen car, to interact with the entertainment and the likes, you need to take your eyes off the road to be looking at it. The haptic touch response definitely helps from that perspective, because you can feel that you've pressed something correctly. But again, you do find that you have to look down and see what you're actually pressing at in detail. Now this car has the 8-speed Tiptronic. I noticed at this speed we're cruising in 7, so no doubt 8th is used primarily for the gentle run, for the motorway, for cruising. But we come out of the little town. Let's actually pop it up into dynamic mode here. There we go, into dynamic, where the gearbox has gone into sport mode. I heard one little downshift, but there really isn't very much noise that comes from this car. Even if I use the paddles and drop it down a few gears, you don't hear much of that. That's third gear. second gear at 5,500 RPM is still barely audible in this cabin. Now it's still amply quick enough, do not fret about that. This engine, 460 horsepower, they'll be the one up above the W12 and then an S8 potentially in future. But this has more than enough capabilities. I just felt the steering wheel starting to tug there as it detected a lane, the lines at the side of the lane. But this car has, let's think about this, cameras everywhere, ultrasonic sensors on every corner, radar, lasers, and so many detection features that it can see everything that is going on. It also has voice natural interaction, so you can say to the car anything you want. You find me the nearest burger restaurant or something and it will take you there with the navigation. It is so advanced. This is a completely new world that it's just moving so quickly, and at the moment this is easily the most technologically advanced car that exists, that's out there, when you just look at this list of features, and it really does go on. I mean, the active suspension system, which is powered by the battery as part of the mild hybrid setup, even has the ability that if it detects a car coming in from the side that's going to T-bone you and crash you, it will lift up, if the car's coming at over 25 kilometers an hour, it will lift up the suspension on that side of the car by 80 millimeters in half a second, so that the impact is actually to the lower, stronger section of the car rather than through the door panels. These safety systems, you know, are pre-safe, so it brakes if it thinks you're going to crash into something in front, which I did notice with cyclists was really rather annoying, because it thought I was going to crash into the cyclist. Now, going along, like I said, it's so gentle, and the sound system's presumably amazing. This technology, the 360 cameras, the sensors I haven't experienced from autopilot because this specific car isn't set up with it yet, would obviously detect if you were falling asleep when you're running on autopilot, but you just let it take you along and enjoy it. This car also introduces rear wheel steering, so it has electromechanical steering front and rear, but for the first time all four wheels are turning. Now that means at slow speed it helps maneuverability, at high speed it helps stability. So under 60 kilometers per hour, for example, as we go around the roundabout here, up to 5 degrees the rear wheels will turn to help make parking or low speed maneuvers significantly easier. Then at higher speed, above 60 kilometers an hour, they will turn up to 2 degrees to help with stability. So at high speed, it's in the same direction as the front wheels. At low speed, it's in the opposite direction. Then I think we're about to join maybe a more main road. I want to get an opportunity just to feel a little bit of the power and the acceleration of the car. When you're driving in automatic, it doesn't necessarily downshift hugely quickly, but that's part of the character. It's not the kind of car to go out and go racing in, is it? It's about having a bit of dynamic ability, but not priority number one. Priority number one is the luxuriousness side of this, whether you're driving a family around or whether you're being chauffeured in the rear of the car. But it is, I've said a few times, very easy to drive, very gentle. Brakes, very gentle. Acceleration, throttle, all inputs are super smooth. Sounds you hear are soft as well, indicators and that side of things. And here we go, a small opportunity. You get a bit of noise coming through the cabin, but not very much. It does that so undramatically, but with pitch control. So as you, well, probably can't see on the video, but it doesn't put the nose up into the air, or when you brake hard, it doesn't put the nose down to the ground. It keeps a very gentle driving position. He's off. And obviously the A8 is the flagship in Audi's range. It leads the charge, and no doubt some of these characteristics and bits of functionality will filter down through the range in the future. But it's remarkable that there is this much in one vehicle. Here's an opportunity then. Away we go, automatic upshift at the red line, and it's so undramatic in the way it does that. Up to the speed limit almost immediately, effortlessly, and so gently, because you don't feel the weight of the car tipping away. It just gets a move on. And really and truly, that is the biggest sensation in here, is the peacefulness and the tranquility of it, but still all of this functionality and ability to get moving. Now I would be in the camp of a little bit more noise, but of course there'll be the W12 version, then there'll be potentially the S8, and those will cater for that niche. This is very much the car to be driven around in, or to have enough performance and enjoy luxuriously, and I don't really think at the moment there's probably a better way to do that than this. This is very much market leader, class leader for this segment, for this category of cars right now. I'm on a short stretch of motorway, so one thing just to try out is the adaptive cruise control. Now it's very familiar, of course, from other cars. You're seeing it across the board nowadays, but if we get this set, the combination of adaptive cruise control and the lane guidance assistance, it's already moving the steering wheel slightly just to keep the car completely in a straight line, but it does that, it does blind spot monitoring, and unless you had the full AI version of the car, of course, it will ask you to take over the steering, because level 2, which we were driving with just then, only allows you up to a certain degree of autonomy. So blind spot monitoring flashing at me like crazy there. Just shuffle over a lane here. But motorway driving, again, calm, and this is in dynamic. If I push it back into, get all the way around to comfort, or you could press the screen to do that with the haptic screen. You just leisurely cruise along, don't worry about anything. The car does its thing. I haven't yet paid any attention to Audi's virtual cockpit. It's a familiar display, we're used to it, and it's slightly reskinned in here, but again, it works brilliantly, shows everything you need, you can customize it, and really it's just very futuristic and cool. And I think it's, although loses something from the fact that you have the same display on the lower end models that you can also get right up on the very top on the flagships, on the A8 or the R8, it's such a good system that it makes sense to do that and to have it consistently across the board. This car's separated by the integration of everything else that it has around that, which is what takes it onto another level. Driving back in the city where the roads, aren't necessarily perfectly smooth, it just rides over everything so well. The tram tracks there, barely noticeable, whereas in other cars, you might be properly bumping, especially the more sporty cars, shall we say, but even going over a drain cover, you hear it a little bit, but it's so smooth. We have 4 stations here to test out some of the safety functionality on these cars. And firstly, I'm just going to point out that this is the A8L W12. So not yet certified for road, but this is the 585 horsepower, 6-litre W12 engined version of the A8L. And this is going to be my first experience to discover the pre-safe and the way it can recognize objects coming towards us.
Like in a narrow street, there are houses on the right and on the left, and we really cannot see the road in front of us. But you see, because of the sensors, the Audi already looks into the street, right? Mm-hmm. And you see the arrows, it warns the driver of the bicycle. Mm-hmm. You really cannot see. And it brakes automatically. It warns the driver and brakes automatically, so nothing happens.
So it saw the cross traffic and it stopped us.
Exactly.
This is to represent what would happen if we were T-boned from the side.
Exactly.
From a junction, if a car just pulled out of this junction to the side of us. Wow.
You see the window closes to protect the driver and all the passengers of parts flying around, but they stay a bit open, though you can talk to the paramedics and also the smoke of the airbag can go away.
Oh wow, okay. That is very, very smart. So the car raised up 8 centimeters.
Exactly.
That was quite a sensation. It just sees that coming. The next stage is all about the active suspension system. Now, one particularly trick feature I'm about to show you is one of comfort. So when you get in the car, a lot of people buy SUVs now because they like a higher position. This car has independent motors, 4 electric motors that can control the suspension. It's another W12, by the way. And one trick feature is that if you open the door, the car will actually raise itself, if you enable this, 4 centimeters to make ingress a little bit easier. As you can see, it shoots straight up, making getting in just a touch easier. I think that's really quite clever. And then if we close the door, it will go down again shortly in a moment.
The predictive control of our active suspension. We have a camera here. The camera looks ahead and scans the road ahead of the car. So if a bump is detected, we lift the vehicle in front of the bump, and then we compensate for the bump so that we can drive smoothly over the bump and we can drive comfortable. What we do is we lift up the vehicle by 5 centimeters in front of the bump, and then we can compensate up to 11 centimeters in total.
Wow, not many speed bumps are more than 11 centimeters.
Yes, so yeah. And what I can show you here is I can turn off and on the predictive part, the predictive control of our active suspension, so we can feel the difference.
Okay.
First, I turn it off.
With it off, a more traditional
This is
more traditional sudden
yes.
impact.
So, yes. So this is already the our active suspension, which is already very good.
Now with predictive function on. Oh wow.
Now this again, this one here. Wait for this one.
You actually feel the lift of the nose. You feel the nose going up slightly before.
Yes. You feel that we lift the car. You feel it slightly, and then we can compensate for it. Well, let's do it again. Here
It's
again.
fascinating.
Here again.
And it also keeps the car flat.
Yes,
When
you don't feel almost nothing. Yes.
So when you go over that last bump with just the raised part to one side of the car, you don't even realise inside the car.
Yes.
I'm literally the feeling of that in that exact scenario, being able to completely prove it, that is mesmerising. That's brilliant. Thank you.
You're welcome.
The next stage has two parts to show. One is the camera system, the 360-degree camera system, which is incredible. And then the next is the protection when you're opening the doors. So let me just step in here quickly because I want to show you how the camera system works. So if I step in to the car and turn on the camera system with this dedicated button down here, you can see that we have a view in front of us. One can pinch this to change it from a panoramic view to a regular flat view. You can press around here, either at the bottom or at the side, to get the direct views out of those cameras, for example, to see where the curbs are, or the people walking right by us there. And my favourite is pressing this 3D button here, which brings up a live 3D render of the car where you're currently parked, so you can see the curbs or other vehicles around you, and even it's interactive, so if I press the brake you can see that flashing. The indicators are the same, and that's digitally rendered exactly where we are parked right now, another car behind. That makes life very, very easy.
Because normally when you're parking, after this perhaps you want to go out and exit the car. And this is why we have an exit warning. Because it might be that you are unaware of some traffic coming from behind, like a car, like a bicycle, or whatever, which you didn't notice. And the idea is to help the driver to prevent any collision with them. So,
Okay, fascinating. So it made the door wait
yeah.
while the cyclist went past, so I didn't open the door and smash them. Amazing.
Yeah.
So even if you're not looking, it draws your attention to look to find out why did it hold and
Yeah.
why didn't it open on you.
Uh-huh.
Another thing I notice about this car, which is the 55 TFSI, so the 3-litre turbocharged petrol, there's also a 3-litre turbocharged diesel, is that it has real exhaust pipes there in that insert into the lower part of the diffuser, rather than those on the V8 that I've been driving. The fourth stage is about the active all-wheel steering system, so the ability for the rear wheels to steer as well. But before we get back there, the front system has the ability to decouple, so it can actually add or subtract additional turning input as required. So the computer controls that, and here at near full lock you can also see that the rear wheels are sitting at 5 degrees, so it's quite noticeable how they're turned out to help with the turning radius. Actually, if I come round to this side, it's even more obvious. On there you can see how the wheels are turned in. Very, very clever. The experiment here is comparing using the rear wheel steering versus not having it. So at the moment it is enabled, and the difference in the turning circle is actually just over 1 meter, which is about 10% on this car. So driving it around like this, it's very, very easy. And we'll get to the hairpin at the end where it should be able to do it now, but then when we change the systems, it will be impossible. Now this is slightly cheating because it's measured out, but it's set in a way here that we have the U-turn perfectly done, the full lock, and we'll be able to get around. And that turning radius is crazy tight, but no issues. And we're ready now to change it to not using the rear wheel steering system. Coming up to the first corner, and yeah, there we go. Extra turning input needed immediately. The difference is crazy, and I find myself just flying all around the steering wheel here in order to keep up. The last test here then, let's see if we can do the U-turn. Although I feel pretty confident that this is not going to work. So full lock, and yeah, that wasn't going to happen. There we go, straight into the cones. So we have to go reverse, although perfect opportunity to 3D view on, which is super cool. So, point proven on that one. Does exactly what it says on the tin. Much, much better when you've got the reduced turning circle. I've moved over to the garage where there are two things to see here with the AI interface. So the parking pilot and then the garage pilot. The ability for the car to park itself when you're in the car, we've seen that before, although this is a further derivative of it. And then the ability to get out and maneuver the car into a space using a laser sensor at the front. This is quite crazy. First up, let's do a parallel park.
So parking situation, you're driving and looking for a parking spot. You activate searching for a parking spot here. Then it starts looking on the right side, but now we want to park on the left side. So you switch the side here with the touch screen. You can also do it with your indicators, yes.
Okay.
So now it finds a slot, gives me the indication where to stop. Tells me that I should take my hands off the steering wheel. And now as a driver I can decide if I want to use the smartphone from outside by pressing this smartphone button here, or do it from the inside. So the light here of the Audi A8 button flashes, tells me please press me. So I press it, take my foot off the brake, and now the car is steering, accelerating, braking, changing gear, and also switching in the turning indicator.
Oh, so
itself.
you don't even have to do the pedals, it's all self-controlled. And it stops it, you just keep holding the button and it moves us forwards.
I can interrupt it if I'm not sure.
And
so
then
it's finished.
Into the fully automated mode. No hands on the wheel. It's amazing. Even with the indicator, the car just controls everything. Obviously the parking sensors, this is using the ultrasonic sensors, everything the car has available. Done.
Now we can also let the car park out here of the situation.
Okay.
So maybe it's getting too close, someone else came in and the cars are too close now. I activate again the parking feature, select that I want to park out to the right side, and then the same procedure. Foot on the brake, then activating the park button, takes the foot off the brake, and now the car is moving into
and it indicates for you.
Yeah. Turn on indicators, and it brings you into a position that you can get out of this parking spot without any more
movement. So it's all now good to just drive.
I keep the steering wheel in the position, I get out. I don't have to do any more backing up, forward, and so on and so on.
That is awesome.
So this is the parking pilot.
Incredible. The next is going to be the garage autopilot. So this is coming on cars, well, both are coming on cars from mid-2018, but this is the ability for the car to move itself without an occupant into a parking space. Say if you had a very narrow gap between two cars or a garage wall, you can just get out, take the key with you, send the car forwards, and then close it all up, close the windows, and lock it.
I will take it and then I start parking with the smartphone by pushing the Audi A8 button in the app. And the car moves into the lot, takes over the steering, acceleration and brake.
The car's fully in charge of everything.
Yes. And for sure, if you have forgotten to close the windows, you will get a message in the app, and you can do this via smartphone as well.
Done.
So the windows are closing now.
So now it's all locked and shut.
And if you want, you can start the engine for unparking. This is especially useful if another car has parked too close to the driver's door, for example, and I have the AI button, I can unpark the car. I have two options to stop. As a safety feature, I can leave the button of my finger and the car immediately stops. And of course, if another person is behind the car, it will stop automatically.
Okay.
And now I can comfortably enter the car and drive away.
Wow.
That's it.
One other thing I want to show you is the animation sequence of the lighting. So the OLED lights at the rear, we unlock the car. You can see the way they illuminate. Lock it back again. That's quite nice. And then coming around to the front as well, just to show you the similar equivalent that you see on the LED matrix lights at the front. Unlock it. And they light up, including the blue that you can see in there, and the running lights down at the bottom as well. And then lock the car again. And off they all go. Very nice little touch there. I should have noticed before, but this is the e-tron version of the A8L. So 449 horsepower electric variant that's also due inbound in due course. And just quickly, you can see on the dashboard, you have the percentage charge, slightly different to the regular displays that we've been looking at as well today. There is so much tech in here, and there are a few more things I want to touch on and show you around as well. So while we're back here, sat in the car with the engine running, let me show you a couple more things. And I'm going to start with the steering wheel itself. Now, I talked a bit about this while I was driving, but you can see the shape of the front grille mirrored there through the inlays on the steering wheel, which I really like. Then you have Audi's virtual cockpit, and we had a quick glance at this earlier. But just to show you in a little bit more detail, more of the screens and settings and things you can have. So navigation into phone, into media, into your trip information, and then you can go through it and scroll down through all the usual bits of information you're used to seeing. Speed recognition, of course. And there's a lot of information to get through this display. It's high-res image to look at, and it will show you everything you could want to see. And when you put it into a different drive select mode, which you do with these buttons here, actual buttons, you press them, and then it brings up the various settings. So if, let's say we put it into dynamic, it will let us know that over on the left hand side there underneath the gear. So if we go back into drive select actually and go to individual, you can press this to customize it, so you can change a couple of things, not too much in here, the steering, the suspension and the drive system, and set those up exactly how you want them for your driving experience. So we can close that, head back towards the front system. And one cool thing is that this actually has touch recognition, so you can write on here where you want to go. So if, let's say, you press search on there, you can then write, you know, T for the tour options. That's quite neat, isn't it? To be able to do that. Change the language. Can you bring up a keyboard? Ah, that's cool too. I like that. Didn't know that. Trial and error, pressing as I go. So you have so much functionality through here. So much you wouldn't believe it. Into the radio. Just turn the volume down so you can't hear it, but it's very responsive. It reacts very, very quickly. But with Haptic on, you do have to give it that actual click. So it's not a case of just touching it. You have to give it a press to get it to activate and do what it is you're asking it to do. But you can see there's a lot of stuff in here, and it can actually save your user profile. So you can have, I think it's 5 different user profiles with 400 parameters. So 400 things are saved and stored. You know, your massaging, your seat settings, your light settings, your cruise control settings, your assistant settings, literally everything. And the car here can just change everything. There are so many settings, it would be an entire hour-long video just to show you everything that you've got in here. Adjust the air suspension if you're towing a trailer. Oh, goodness me. Back to home, into the settings menu. Your more traditional settings, the various bits and pieces. Yes, we've gone back into here where you've got countless things you can change and play with and set up and set how you want your user profiles. So you can have personal profiles on and set up there with the key, or with Audi's connected key that allows you to use your phone. Very trick. Now coming back down, the only other buttons you actually have are the front and rear heating for the windows, traction, hazards, and then this small row with the engine start-stop, the 360 camera system, which again we're familiar with, very crisp and clear. This works well, and you can see another A8 part next to me there, and press that again to turn it off, and then the button to hot step into driver assist, where again you can configure which ones you would like on and which ones you would like off. So that's all pretty intuitive, to be honest. Beyond that, the gear selector, the 8-speed Tiptronic, handbrake, auto handbrake operation, a small storage box with 2 cup holders, and a 12-volt socket, the armrest that opens up as 2 separate parts, which inside has 2 USBs, an SD and a SIM card slot, obviously for the data connection that the car has. And close that back down. Then there's a decent sized glove box as well. Lots of stuff in there. Nice little spec list we can just have a quick glimpse at here for this car. Let me turn it the other way around so we're looking at the English side, but you can see this car is loaded with options. City Assist package, Dynamical wheel steering, Active AI suspension, Tour Assist package, and just look at the list of options those come with. Very, very customized, very, very nice spec. 1920 by 720 pixels for the driver display, which is nice. I'll put that away for the moment. You're welcome to pause the video and go and check it out if you'd like to see that in more detail. But I'm just going to step into the back again for a moment. The thing that I have not shown you properly here is the foot massager in the back of the front seats. And to do that, you come back to the remote control panel here, go seats, seat adjustment, and then you go into full recline mode, which tucks down the headrest at the front, folds that seat as far forward as it can, and then opens up the footrest. I'm still holding the button. And then it asks the driver if they have a clear view of the mirror, because of course this headrest position could obstruct their view. But that now does its thing, and I can feel the massagers doing their thing in there, which is quite a cool, albeit random bit of functionality that you can have in the car. And then reverse that, the screen folds back out as well, like so, and it all straightens back into position. That display as well, this tablet that the rear passenger has, is again very high resolution, crisp, clear, nice display screen to have on there. And again, I mean, we can show forever playing through all the different menus and settings, but it's much of what you have in the front, again repeated back here, although in German here, of course. We are in a German vehicle, but the car information here allows you to see live speedometer, how you're currently driving, where you've been, etc, etc. So what else can I show you looking around? The blinds are up, of course. The blinds can be taken down on the side windows, also on the rear window. These headrests have a lovely amount of padding to them. They're super, super soft and comfortable. You've got everything that the front has pretty much mirrored back here in the seats, and in terms of their comfort, just a pocket on that side rather than the massager. You can only have the massager on the passenger side, unsurprisingly, because if you put the driver's seat all the way forward and the headrest down, you're not going to be doing a very good job of actually driving anywhere. But back in here, I think we went through pretty much everything there is to see and do and change. And you've got 4-zone climate control, so you can adjust left and right independently. And you've got the same touch clicking feedback for turning on and off the air vents. All full, all off. You just want to touch and press buttons in here and play with everything. And actually you've got hardware buttons here as well to go into the massage position. I didn't realise that. And you can set a memory seat as well in the back. So it is absolutely loaded beyond belief with functionality and features and things you can test out and play with and enjoy. I couldn't really imagine a better way to be driven around than inside an A8. Alas, I've hopped back in the front, but it's time to switch it off, to press the stop button and hop out, because that is the end of my Audi A8 driving experience today. So let me grab the key, we'll head out, have one last glimpse around from the outside. I will never get bored of how those door handles work and the feel you have pulling them. And just come around and take it in. As cars of different engines come by, you've got the 50s, the 55s, and all sorts here. And obviously in traditional Audi fashion, when you lock and unlock, you get the nice light shows and displays. Unlock it and the lights come on as well if they're set to do so. Similarly around the back. But that has been quite an eye-opening experience. It is a wonderful, wonderful car. There is no question about that. Perhaps it could be slightly more distinct in terms of its styling. I'd say it's quite played down. It's not hugely revolutionary, and as I mentioned before, I can't really get on with those. I find those a little bit awkward and uncomfortable, but the inside is wonderful. It's a marvelous piece of technology. It really, really does set a standard of what can be done, and I have very much enjoyed driving that today. So I hope you've enjoyed this video, a very in-depth look at the new Audi A8. But I'm gonna wrap this one up for there. So thank you very much for watching, guys. That's it for now. Make sure you're subscribed for plenty more videos, and I'll catch up with you again very soon. Cheers.